Marsden did Hop with that bunny. He did Enchanted. There were little animated characters in Enchanted. Ben Schwartz has done Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and he did one of the Lego movies and one more. I think I've written it down somewhere. And Carrey's done voiceover talents as well. So all the actors knew what they were doing. They're so experienced in what works too. And I think the best part about Marsden is that because he's a dad, he's got these kids, and Sonic is basically a kid. So when you look at Marsden's interactions with Sonic, it feels kind of dad-like in that sense, and you could be able to draw from his experience. Like, just pretend Sonic's like this little kid really wanting to go to Disney World and has all this energy and wants to have this fun. And that's the way he talked to him. It was like a kid, so he had all that experience. So he was really well cast and ready for this.
Why did, Maddie's sister hate him so much?
That is the one part of the movie I didn't get. Yeah. It was just kind of like, who would not like Marsden? He's the nicest guy. He's really handsome. It's just, and that part was the only thing in the movie I think that didn't really work for me. But the first time I saw it, it was like, okay, whatever, no big deal. But then it started annoying me on the second and third time I saw it. Like, why is this scene even here? Why is it necessary?
She got some great lines though. Like, hey, put on my Fitbit.
Yeah. But that was probably product placement. There was a lot of product placement.
Oh gosh, Olive Garden, trucks, optical illusions. But that's how you get money for this thing.
Amazon drones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how you make that money.
If I was Olive Garden, I was like, okay, so they probably paid for that product placement because you don't get mentions twice in a movie because they mentioned it early on, and then they mentioned Olive Garden again with the gift card. You don't get two mentions in the movie without shelling out some dough to get that. But it's almost like they were making fun of the Olive Garden in a little way with the gift card because they were kind of let down with the gift. And I was thinking, like, there's no Olive Gardens in Montana. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see that being there. But then Marsden said, oh, well, I'm looking forward to the pasta bowl afterwards. So it was like they kind of, I don't know, it's like they were disappointed with it. But then later on he said he was excited. So I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing where they're making fun of Olive Garden, but at the same time, it's a product placement. But I've been seeing Olive Garden do a lot. Like, I think Post Malone went there with Jimmy Fallon with all-you-can-eat breadsticks. And then Conan O'Brien took his producer, Jordan Schlansky, who loves Italy. They got dressed up in tuxes and went to Olive Garden. So I can see Olive Garden be kind of forward-thinking on a lot of product placement. But there was a lot in here. And I heard the Fitbit one, and I was like, yeah, that's probably product placement as well.
What I like about the Olive Garden, though, now those breadsticks are in my mind, right? This movie gets the breadsticks in your brain. It's an earworm in this movie. Oh, gotta get those breadsticks. So I think it does a good job of, even if they're making fun of it, it's still an earworm. Because that general's like, oh, I love those breadsticks. Like, why would he give them an Olive Garden? It's such product, and it's a fun surprise, right? It's a callback to Olive Garden. You're like, why did this just happen? But
yeah, it's good. I kind of like how Sonic throws in the pop culture references, but it's got to be tough to do a funny pop culture reference and balance that with the product placement at the same time. So they did a good job, I think, trying to walk that line with raising money for the movie while working those in.
In my head, I'm thinking about how movies that use pop culture elements. I mean, let's say you make a movie. So they delayed this for 5 months, right? You make a movie, you do the VFX for 6 months, and then you get delayed for 5 months. Those references might be old 11 months later. So I do worry about that, but also, I mean, like, kids watching it, they love the floss. Do they still love the floss? Like, do they, like, I mean, is that going to age the movie a little bit, right? Like,
there's multiple things in here that aged it. Like, for example, when he came in with Sonic into his sister-in-law's house, she's like, are those emails? Remember, she was like asking him what it is. So there was a reference to Hillary Clinton's scandal with the deleted emails. And there's also, he wakes up and he's like, is The Rock president? But that was from like 4 years ago when The Rock was they were kind of joking around about The Rock running. So a lot of the jokes, because this movie was on the shelf for a little while and they had delays, some of the jokes that were written into it kind of felt a little old.
Man, it's kind of wild to think, like, because we grew up playing, we had a Sega Genesis and we had Sonic. We played a lot of Sonic from what I remember. We had Sonic 1. We never did the ones past it, did we?
I can't remember, but I remember us playing Sonic 1 until we beat it.
Yeah, we had Sonic 1, maybe Pinball? I don't remember Tails. We never played Tails, did we? We just had one.
I can't remember. It was like late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, but we played the heck out of it, so there's a nostalgia factor, and it's still popular today. And I guess people were worried about, I think Detective, no, that came out in 2019, Pokemon Detective Pikachu. So they had already greenlit it by then. But that doesn't seem much of a risk to put $80 million on a Sonic movie, does it?
No, that's a good point. Especially because the demographic is so strong. Like myself, I played as a kid, but now I have kids. So it's like it appeals to kids and it appeals to that nostalgic level of people our age as well. So I think it was such a safe bet. I think the only way it may not have been a safe bet, which is they probably were worried that it felt like a cash grab, like it felt like an easy target, is maybe why they were hesitant or that it took so long.
They did it right, though. I mean, once I heard Jim Carrey's in Sonic the Hedgehog, Ben Schwartz, when I heard Ben Schwartz is doing Sonic, I'm like, it's perfect. And then when I heard James Marsden, I'm like, what? And then Adam Pally, I'm like, what? This is, they did it right, I think. They brought in pros. This is one of those movies where a lot of movies don't get it. You have an inexperienced director, but he had Tim Miller's guiding him, but you bring in pros and they give you pro work. And you can do it quick. So I think they were smart to make these choices. If they'd have brought in maybe lesser actors, maybe it might have not worked as well. But they did the right thing by spending some extra money on these guys.
Yeah, and they set them up for success. It's like they just took the good aspects of Sonic the Hedgehog and threw the rest out, rather than trying to mimic it completely.
Mm-hmm. You get the world in the beginning, right? So we get to see the world with the loopy-loops.
It was perfect. It was 2 minutes introduction. It was perfect. It was the right amount of time to introduce the character.
And then you get the chili dogs, right? You get the various little things, and people complain that Tails wasn't in this, but the writer said we had Tails in it, but the movie's about Sonic being young or he's told to run, right? His mentor gets murdered, which is brutal, and then he just runs, never stop running. So he's always hiding. And so I think this is his origin story. So you can't really have someone else there with you for an origin story. You can bring them in later.
Yeah, save it for the sequel. Perfect. They did the hint about Tails. They introduced Tails after the movie, and after the credits, there was a little scene where they see Tails flying around. And there's rumors that The Rock or John Cena may do the voice for Tails, is what I'm hearing right now from research.
Really?
Yeah, which is funny because it's so different from Ben Schwartz's voice.
Oh, that sounds funny.
Like, I wonder how that's going to work.
Whoa, The Rock?
This big, deep voice and this little Tails character is pretty funny.
And he proved himself in Moana, so he can do that voice work.
Yeah, he was brilliant in Moana.
What do you I guess, do you even care about the plot in this movie? It's about James Marsden. He has a perfect life. He has an amazing wife. They're very supportive. She's a doctor. And then he's like, I want to go be a cop. And she's like, well, you supported me, so I'm going to support you. I mean, it's very... it's really a bare minimum. I'm going to go to San Francisco and be a beat cop, and I'm going to make a difference in the world. You're like, what?
No, I don't care at all. I mean, I think it's because of kids, too. I mean, kids are fine. I mean, they don't care that it's the exact same plot as Bumblebee or E.T. with some alien from outer space coming and relying on people to help them. I mean, it's been used as a pretty reliable formula as well. But, I kind of liked it. The wife was part of the solution. They supported each other. She was in on the fun and the mischief, and I always like to see that happen.
One of the biggest complaints about this movie is it's Sonic sitting in a car. So Sonic could have gotten to San Francisco and he could have gone to San Francisco. He could have gotten there in 4 seconds and gotten his coins. And he could have run up the side of the building because he does that earlier. So people complain about that. Like, what would you say to people that are just like he could have just ran there in the movie? But it's a 90-minute movie. It can't be a 4-minute movie.
Well, also, if he's running the whole time, you don't have that buddy cop feel between him and Marsden. Mm-hmm. You don't have that affection grow to where it means something at the end of the movie. If he's just, no one else can run that fast. So if he's just running all the time, how can you develop the character?
Yeah.
I mean, there are funny bits with running, like in the baseball game or when he picked up the turtle.
That's a great way to
Have you ever felt so alive, but you can't?
Turtle flies out of his hands.
Yeah, it was shaking after the run, but you can't develop the character because no one can keep up with him.
Yeah.
And of course Sonic could have got there, but he was just relishing his time having a friend and having that connection for the first time. So that part in the car, it didn't seem that long. And I read a lot of the critics, and I didn't really see much complaints about that because I thought it was a smart way to advance the movie.
And it's cheap.
Yeah, everyone loves a road trip.
Yeah.
All the mischief you get into in a road trip.
And the bar scene I dig. It kind of, all right, it wasn't kind of, but it was definitely, X-Men Days of Future Past and then X-Men, there's two Quicksilver scenes where he goes in super fast motion and does the same exact thing that Sonic does. Have you seen that?
Yeah, and this was called Sonic Time. They did this in the game.
Yeah, and so, I don't know, I like that bar scene, and they were fiddling around like, should we get a phantom camera in here? Should we shoot this in 120 frames per second? Like, how do we shoot this? And then at the end, they just had the people stand still. That was their... with the camera motion. Yeah. So, because, listen, man, you bring in a phantom camera and that slow motion, you got to bring in the operators for it. You got to bring in the focus pullers. You got to rent the camera. And you got to have all the people standing there doing the same thing. Or you can just have them stand still. And that's what they did.
Oh, I didn't realize they were all just standing still there.
Yeah.
He wrapped the guy in toilet paper. He's like, oh, man, did you see how much toilet paper I used?
Yeah, that was amazing. Just the little gags. You put the stuff on the guy's head and like the big wedgie.
Yeah, and the kids liked those little gimmicks, those little gags. That was funny. They found it hilarious.
And I guess it shows us. And nothing he did was especially mean to these bar fighters.
It wasn't mean spirited at all.
Just wedgies and bear stuff. And then Jim Carrey shows up and beats one of them up. That poor guy got beat up twice.
I like how they thought Marsden and Sonic were hipsters. It's like, we don't want your kind here. What do you mean your kind? Hipsters.
Yeah. What does that mean?
How dare you?
What does that mean?
Yeah. It's like, how dare you is a pretty funny response, but it was just so ridiculous. It's like, they're the farthest thing from hipsters. And then I thought it was funny and it worked because it was so ridiculous and out there.
What was Jim Carrey's story? So he was young and he got beat up by a bully. So then he invented something that destroyed the bully's face, and the bully had what was that? And then he's like, what did you learn from that? He's like, I'm gonna do it again. Like do you remember that story that he told? I have it in my notes here somewhere, but he threatened the guy. He's like, I got punched in the face once and I went and I destroyed the kid's life. Didn't he say that?
Yeah, he invented some kind of contraption to get the bully back and then beat him up and it never messed with him again, and he never lost a fight. And then that's when Marsden hung up on him during his big triumphant speech. And Anna Pauly's like, I think he hung up on you because the light isn't on here anymore.
Oh, I love that scene.
In the midst of his big speech, then there was, hang up. But that was another way they showed Robotnik's background about just raging against the world right now.
He calls him, Officer Brain Fart? Isn't that what he's... Oh, all right, cool. Hey, so how about this? Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we will talk more Sonic the Hedgehog. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Movies, Films, and Flicks. And coming back with me is Nobody Cares. Nobody cares. So, you know what?
What's your name again? Nobody cares.
Are you in charge here? Yes, nope. Wrong. Nah. I'm in charge. Is Major me? I love this line. You've never seen anything like this before. It says I'm the top banana in a world full of hungry little monkeys. And then, in a sequentially ranked hierarchy based on a level of critical importance, the disparity between us is too vast to quantify. The doctor thinks you're basic. Oh, I love that. And then, oh, man.
Machines don't need time off to get drunk and put the boat in the water.
And they brought in Neil McDonough for that. He's in everything, man. He's a big name. He's been in the Marvel movies, like Rundown with The Rock. I mean, he's in Yellowstone, like anything you can think of. Band of Brothers, Justified. And they brought him in for one scene to just be destroyed by Jim Carrey.
Sounds like a favor. He owed the director a favor, is what I'm guessing.
But imagine that, Eric. You're a character actor. You've been successful. You're in the biggest. Like if someone needs a good heavy, they bring you in, right? You've been doing this for years. And someone's like, hey, man, you want to go get dissed by Jim Carrey for a day? Yeah, pay me. You're like, that sounds amazing. Give me the money.
It's a badge of honor.
Yeah. And I think that is. I mean, he steals like his dance sequence in Robotnik's dance sequence inside of his thing where he gets his head bit off by the T-Rex. He picked that song. He handpicked it and he pitched it to the director. And that's a brilliant physical comedy scene. I love it. Give him the Oscar nomination. Think about, how about this? When you write about who should be nominated for an Academy Award, just